My name's Mark Stanfield, and I've been a volunteer here at WAAAM for about 8 years. And I'm going to point out three interesting sections of the museum today that after this talk you might go walk over and check out. And I'm in the Mall Fortress in Belgium, and it was considered invincible. And on May 10th, 1940, Germany took in 10 cargo gliders full of men with flamethrowers, and they took this fort out in 20 minutes. And fast forward, once when the U.S. heard that, we wanted to copy their success. And all of a sudden, we needed a glider program. And in the U.S., there was 1,100 glider pilots, and there was fewer gliders and most of our gliders were just two-place or one-place soaring gliders. And so the military tried to either copy or buy some of those up or get some of those manufacturers making those gliders. In the far corner, the opposite corner of this one, there's a glider called the TG4. So meaning Training Glider 4, and it was made by a company called Lester Kaufman, and it was more of a soaring glider. And so the issue with that is, if you see here, this is one of our cargo gliders called a WAAAM CG4. And the goal was for us to, like I said, emulate Germany's success. And this glider could carry 15 armored men, or it could carry a little tank, or little howitzer, or jeeps. And it was to help fly these in stealthily and for different battles. And the second place the gliders were used by Germany was in the Battle of Crete, and Hitler just said that was a total nightmare, and he scrapped the glider program after that, but we continued with it. And so the little glider schools started popping up all over New Mexico, Arizona, some in Ohio. They were basically just camps and camps of tents, and but we didn't even have any gliders. We didn't have people to teach gliders. And so one of the things they would do is these little L-birds that you see down here, the little army-colored L-birds, they would go to what they call dead stick schools. They would take them up a few thousand feet, they'd turn the engine off, slow it up, stop the trot, and they just basically fly it like a dead stick and get their training that way. So, but the goal from the War Department was we need 10,000 gliders, and so that was part of the solution, the dead stick school. But there was a guy in the War Department, Stanton, and he said, well, I think we can probably contact some of these small companies, Taylorcraft, Piper, Aranca, and I bet you they could make some small gliders. And so basically what they did, so here's kind of a picture of one of the small L-birds. It's also being used as a tow plane. Within 9 days, about all three companies had taken the engine off the front, extended out another seat, and then they were able to carry an instructor, you can see there, and then right there would have been 2 more students. So they started training 2 students at one time. Interesting enough, these gliders, and so then 750 were built, 250 from each of the 3 companies here. And here, Aranca L3, we have one of those here. They made what they call the TG5. We don't have a TG5 here. There is one in the state of Oregon that's almost flyable. We have a 1942 Taylorcraft, what we call an L2, and it was the TG6. We have the TG6 here. Question?
So, are these all basically just modified power plants?
These were.
They're all, basically, they just put the power plant, turned it into.
Correct. Correct. And then the Piper Cub, which was designated the L4, the TG8. The reason these made great training planes for this, or great training gliders for this, was they were horrible gliders, meaning they had a glide ratio of 10 to 1. So for every 10 feet forward, they'd lose 1 foot. The Lester Kaufman, the glider I talked about that's in the far corner, it's more of a soaring glider. It had a glide ratio of more than 20 to 1. And so for the cargo glider was more of a 10 to 1. And so some of the soaring, early on, some of the issues with using the soaring planes was that once they moved from, say, a more soaring glider to just a glider, they would get in these and they'd be missing the target. And that was another reason for, we need something that emulates this big cargo glider. So they wanted the port glide ratio. Because when this thing released from a C-47, the C-47 is basically the military version of the DC-3, this thing was coming down, right? You weren't going to go soar a ridge or a mountain.
Mark, is that a function of the weight of the thing or the aerodynamics of the
Both.
thing?
Both. And so interesting enough here, the Taylorcraft and the Piper L4, so the TG6 and the TG8, which we have right over here, they're the only two flying in the entire U.S. And one of the reasons is that most of these airplanes, when the war was ended, since they were such crappy gliders, the companies sold kits to put the engine back on it. So most of them got converted back to a flying plane. There are a few in museums and everything, but and then we're fortunate to have two here that we've actually flown. This is as far as the training of these pilots, this book here, To Fly the Gentle Giants, is a great read. It's very entertaining. It's very knowledgeable. Most of my knowledge started from this, and then once you just go do your own internet searches and everything from there.
So those are pretty much just single mission aircraft?
Yeah. So thank you for that. So the WAAAM, I mean, most of these. So these would get sent over to Europe in crates of 4, and then they would get put together, and these pilots, once they earned their G wings, they used to say, I mean, the G does stand for glider, but they really said the G stood for guts, because when these guys landed, they were now infantrymen, right? And a lot of the pilots were killed upon landing. Just either because they would hit something, or you'll see there's images from here, or if you go online and look at there is an actual glider, World War II glider aviation museum in Lubbock, Texas.
I think the important thing to note is that typically the unit was designed for one-time employment. They land in the field and that was it.
Yeah.
Unless it was a training mission, then you could recover it.
Right. And plus, the enemy dispersed X's and mines and all kinds of things in fields, just waiting for these to come. There's none of these flying today. The CG4, there's a couple that are kind of close, I've heard. One up a bunch near Oshkosh is trying to put one together. But again, most of these all ended up in Europe. And otherwise, the ones that didn't, they were more, people were more interested in the large boxes, cargo boxes used for barns or chicken coops or anything like that than they were in the glider. Let's see. So last summer, I guess 2 summers ago now, a large group of us from WAAM got to take the TG6 and the TG8 and the TG4, and we displayed these at AirVenture, which is the Experimental Aviation Association's large fly-in. It's the largest fly-in in the world. And during 2 of the Warbird review shows, a couple of our pilots got to fly these. This was Ben Davidson, our former chief pilot here, and flying it in the air show. So it was a real honor because gliders don't normally fly in the air shows at EAA, and but we got to fly it there twice, which was very cool. Questions about the gliders that we have here? So just to share with you, you know, what soaring has become in America today. So we, well, actually, here's our soaring club here in Hood River, and so part of our mission is training youth members, and we have a fleet of gliders here, and we have some instructors and tow pilots, and we're a club just trying to have fun and keep the sport alive like anybody else. And so I want to bring up Heinz Geller here. He's a friend of mine that we are in a syndicate together. That means there's 11 of us that share an airplane. And I kind of want him to talk about growing up and learning to fly a primary glider, which we have a Waco primary glider here.
That's mine.
That's
First flight is a solo. Oh,
Yeah.
first thing I have to say, I'm an import from Germany. So when they did all this glider landing, this heavy stuff, I was on the other side. The other thing I can say is every time a 4-engine bomber flies overhead, however it has gone, it used to raise my hair in the back, because that was the enemy. And I can tell you that when I was 6, we came up from the basement in Kassel, and there was a break the size of this in my bed off the wall. We were bombed out. The house across from us, across the backyard, had a bomb go through all the way into the basement. It's a 4-story house. It left a nice hole on every floor and exploded in the basement in a baker's storage room. He had a whole bunch of flour. And so it reduced the damage of the bomb somewhat. The interesting part, at least for me, was, and I don't know what my parents did, I was able to walk over there and go through all the 4 floors and look at the hole that the bomb made. Well, enough of that stuff. I started out flying with my dad. He took me to Dürnberg and Kassel, and the first year I was 13, 14, couldn't fly, but they had this guy set up on the bottom right at the CG, so when the wind was there, we could do this, which we can do today, but we could also do a little bit of elevator and a little bit of rudder in the wind. So come lunchtime, when the crew went out to lunch, the kids were flying this one on the stand. So I spent 1 year practicing flying that one. In the second year, my first flight was solo. We didn't have training gliders. So you get set in there, and the instructor sets you an elevator. And of course, after a while, you learn if you do a little bit more of this, you get to go further. So yeah, we did that. We have 2 guys on the tail holding the airplane, 2 guys on one side of the rubber rope, 2 guys on the other side of the rubber rope, and when the instructor said go, those started running down the hill, and when the instructor thought it was heavy enough for the launch, or the guys couldn't hold it anymore, off you went. So you were maybe this high off the ground, going down maybe to that wall over there, first flight. and then you put this thing up on its stand, turned around, and you hauled the glider back up, and the next guy got to fly. So now count this. 4 guys on this side on the rope, 4 guys on that side, that's 8. 2 guys in the back, that's 10. The pilot and the instructor is 12. How many flights do you think you can get in, launch, and drag it back? Well, if you were lucky, you've got 3 in the morning and 4 in the afternoon. That isn't a flight for all of the guys that had to go do that. And today we complain when we come to the field, we didn't get to fly today. Oh, we only got 1 flight today. So flying was a little different than what it is now. We're spoiled, and I like it. So that was my first flight. Then I came over, my folks came over here to the United States. We went to Alamogordo, and surprisingly enough, there wasn't any glider operation. And off and on, I went and got glider, and I finally, in 2003, I got my glider license in Seattle. Ephrata, nice place to go flying. And I've got about a little over 600 flying hours. Mostly in the DG-1000. DG-1000, fortunately, is a 2-seater. Got long wings, 60 feet wingspan, a glide ratio of 46:1. So if I'm a mile up, I can go 46 miles before I have to touch down, given there is no downdraft, no updraft. It's a long ways. So that's a fun thing. Another question that I have is, do you know what makes the glider stay up? Where does the energy come from? Well, let me give you a quick rundown on that. It's the sun that's our energy, and gravity, the 2 things. What the sun does, it sits and warms up the ground. Doesn't do much anything to the air. It sits and warms up a great big patch on the ground. Let's say we have a plowed field. It warms that up because the color is darker, okay? The warm field then in turn warms up the air above it. And eventually there's enough of a ball of warm air that it punches through the cold air and rises. Warm air rises, hot air balloon is what you got to think of, okay? And then as it rises, it brings in new cold air, which gets warmed up, and that thermal keeps on going up. And as gliders go and look for that, we have instrumentation, and when it says beep, 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 and in the glider, it says, oh, we have lift, and we circle. We try to find the middle of that lift, and we keep on going up. Longest I've been up is 7 hours. There is no longer a record for how long you can stay up, because it doesn't make any sense. After 12 hours, you go to sleep in a single-seat glider. Not too cool. So we don't have a record. Highest altitude the glider has gone is 74,000 feet. It's the Perlan that's doing that right now in Argentina, which is a little different soaring than I'd explained. He had an experience of that in the DG here not too long ago. He just talked about it briefly. What happens there is 2 sorts of lifts. If the wind is coming and hitting the mountain, what's going to have to happen? The wind has to go over the mountain. Okay, and right here over that edge, as it goes over the mountain, there's updraft. We can go along that edge, and there's updraft. Now, as the air goes up, it cools down 5.5 degrees per 1,000 feet in standard normal air. Okay, and it looks around and says, am I warmer or colder than the air up here? And since it was forced up, now it's cooled down 5.5 degrees per 1,000 feet. Most likely it's cooler. So what happens? It goes back down, and as it gets energy to get down, it gets lower than the 5.5 degrees per 1,000 feet, and it warms up. And it looks around and says, hey, what's the matter? I am hot. And it goes back up and rises. Okay? Now, if you imagine the same thing on a river that runs over rocks, you see the wave over the rocks, and there's a second wave and a third wave. Well, that's what we have, what we call wave flying. In wave flying, we think we can go to 100,000 feet. That's the objective of Perlan. their airplane is built to go to 90,000 feet. They were going to go to 100,000 feet, but there's a building issue. Speed of sound is involved in that. Because at 100,000 feet, the air is mighty thin, so you have to go fast. And the speed of sound doesn't change much with altitude. And speed of sound, faster than speed of sound in the glider, is a totally new idea. We haven't got it. And so 90,000 feet is kind of the boundary. They're up to 74,000 feet at Perlin. Look up Perlin in Google and follow them. It's very interesting. They're right down there right now. They try to fly every day. And if you have a little idea of what flying is, and I think I probably used up all your time.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think now people should wander over and look at those sections.
Look at those sliders, you're looking at them different. And if you have an opportunity to go fly with a glider, especially the power pilots, go do that. It's different flying. One of the advantages that gliders have, when we have to land. There is no go around, nothing. Okay, so we're a lot more trained to make safe landings. Okay, and yeah, every once in a while we have an unsafe one. Just ask me. I had an unsafe one where the wind came up really bad and I landed 25 feet too short on the runway, actually across the runway, and I ended up in the weeds. Fortunately, nothing got hurt. The airplane got a little bit damaged, but money fixed that. The people in the aircraft were all happy and smiling, kind of. Okay, any questions? Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.